You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. Just so you guys know, I'm going to kind of delay just a few minutes so I can get more of the listening audience on. We are very sporadic on how we're doing our shows, and I apologize to the listening audience for the interruption in your regularly scheduled programs. But we have Jason Bartolone from Northport City Hall Command Center, who's going to give us an update. So, what I would like to ask you guys is the more that you can share this video, the more that we can get accurate information, not misinformation, accurate information from our government. It is vital that we share this information up and down our streets. If you've got internet and you're blessed to have internet, please get this information out. This is the most accurate, the most up to date information of what's happening in Northport. So please share this, get people to watch this video, uh, and really, we're trying to get the information out as accurately as possible so that people can stay calm, cool, and collected. And I got to tell you, from every indication I've seen from what Northport is doing and other agencies, we are leaps and bounds ahead of what I think everyone projected, seeing as how what has happened further south of us. So, with that, I'm going to introduce Jason. Jason, please let everybody know how you're doing and how City Hall's doing, and then I'll let you take it from there, buddy.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, John, and thanks for letting us get our information out to the community because it is so important and it is so challenging. I know everybody's dealing with power issues and with cell phone issues. We're dealing with them as well here at City Hall. Some of us have been working pretty much around the clock since before the storm. I've been here. I haven't been home since before the storm, and many of my teammates as well. So we're working very hard to help people, and we're dealing with the same challenges. We had no internet, we had no phones, and that's a challenge for me, especially as a communicator who relies on that to get messages out to the community. It's very hard when we're stuck in a building and we have no power and we have no lights and we have no phones to get you the information that you need. So we appreciate everybody out in the public that has been patient. I know they've wanted answers. I know it's been hard to get information to them. So we appreciate them and everything that they can do to spread the word. If they're hearing this video, hearing John's broadcasts, and sharing it with their neighbors who might not have cell phone or might not have internet or be able to read or listen to the news. We need to get this information out to the community. It's so important. And so we thank you for letting us do that, John.
I appreciate it. So, one of the questions that I had from a person over in the I think the most island oriented. I've never used the word island in Northport, but that Salford area has kind of been um, not not handled the way we wanted it to be handled with the hurricane, but has brought a lot of really tough decisions that have had to be made through services like yours, and tough decisions like road closures and things like that. Can you talk about that area first? And by far, they're not the most dire area, but I think it's the hardest area to get information into and talk about.
Sure. You know, this is a storm that is unlike any other that we have seen here in this community. And so while we have some areas where people are used to flooding, and they expect it when a storm comes. And so there might have been cases where they would have stayed home and, tried to stay through the storm, and then now are finding themselves in situations that they weren't expecting. And we're also seeing areas of the city that don't normally experience that kind of flooding, and it's new to them. And this is just such an outlier as far as seeing a storm of this magnitude. It was Category 4, but not far off from being a Category 5. And it's about as dire as it gets. And just the way the track hit us, and the rains and the sheer force of it that was sustained, dumped so much rain on us in that period where it was battering us. And now we're dealing with the aftermath of the rain, the water coming from the north to the south, where we know that when we get a storm, we see those waters rise, and they were already high to begin with. And so we're still in day 2, day 3 afterwards, where we typically see rainwater rising. It's coming up even more than people are expecting. So we know that this is unprecedented in a lot of ways, and people weren't ready as well as they could be because we got hit with just such a monster storm. So we're doing everything we can to help people. We've had a lot of rescues, and those are continuing. I can tell you that as of last night, we had more than 550 rescue calls that we had to respond to. That's a lot. And so, first and foremost, our first responders are out there trying to get those people that are in immediate danger, that are in really bad situations. The message we want to get out to people now is, and we get a lot of questions for those who do message us, who do have internet and can send us messages or call the city. They're asking, should I stay? Should I go? What should I do? If you see flood waters rising, if you see water in your home and you feel that you're in danger, you should leave. And if you can do that safely, you should do that. There are evacuation centers. We work with Sarasota County to open an evacuation center, a voluntary evacuation center at Venice High School, so that it's out of the area. It's in a safe location. People can go there. If you can get out of your home and travel there and bring yourself there, you can do that and just show up. If you can't, if you're being rescued, that's where folks are being brought to. If you can get to a transportation rally point, we have those set up around the community. Right now there's 2. There's one at the Publix on Toledo Blade Boulevard, and there's one at the Foundation Church on 13,000 Tamiami Trail. Later tonight, we're going to be opening and consolidating to a single transportation rally point, and that's going to be at the George Mullen Activity Center. And so that's a place where people, if they can get there, they'll be provided with transport. We're working with the county to bring bus shuttles, working around the clock to bring them to a shelter, to bring them to a safe place, get them out of Northport. Obviously, we've got a lot of issues throughout the community, not just the flooding. We've got roadways that are impassable. We've got roadways that are compromised. We've got a lot of road closures. We've got the Interstate 75 shut down, which has only added to things, and traffic issues. So people really shouldn't be out and about. Although we know that, the storm has passed, people want to get out there, get back to regular life, get out to get the things they need, see what the community looks like and see the danger. But they are in danger if they do that, because we're not back to regular times. Even though it's a sunny, beautiful day out there and the storm is gone, the danger really hasn't passed yet. So if people can stay home, they should. We have an evacuation order that's been issued for the nighttime, especially when it's really dangerous. But if you're home and you're safe, you really should stay home. It'll help the first responders who are trying to get to people, and it'll help the recovery effort, because we have supplies that are trying to be delivered here, and they can't get to where they need to go because there's gridlock and there's people out on the roads. So if you can, you'll be helping everyone by staying home and staying safe.
There's 2 particular areas I want to talk about, 2 streets I want to talk about right now. And we've had a breach of Price Boulevard, closest to Sumter, correct?
Yeah, we have multiple issues on that stretch of Sumter. And so on Price, between Sumter and Toledo Blade, and that entire area is shut down. We think we'll be able to get, in talking to our public works director, eventually we'll be able to get some access for those people. But right now they're really stuck. And we know that's a major thoroughfare. So it's really causing issues throughout the city with people trying to get around. So we've got some serious issues, some transportation issues. We've only begun to really assess the damage. We're still in response mode and an emergency response. But then we're going to get into the recovery mode, and we're going to get into the damage assessment that's really going to have to take place to look at how much of our infrastructure has been damaged, how many of our homes have been damaged, and just how big of an impact did the storm leave on our city.
So the road closure that is on the other side of Salford, that is like the only road truly into that area right now, and it's compromised. And I was out there the other day, taking visuals, and just so you guys know, I don't know if you need drone images of that stuff, but I've got it. just trying to collect the data that seems to be not in the national news because, contrary to everybody's belief, yes, we got hit, but we didn't get hit the hardest. There are communities that are suffering worse than we are. We're in life saving mode and try to rebuild mode. But if people are in that suffered area, would you continue to use that bridge that's closed as your daily route to go out and see things?
People again really shouldn't be going out to see things, and use safety, use caution, use your best judgment. But there are a lot of issues, and especially with not only the roads being compromised, the flooding that we're seeing, that can be a dynamic situation that can change. The road can be open one day and then impassable the next because of the water. The water levels are changing. We had to relocate our operations one day, and then we had to relocate them back here at the city because of the changing conditions. So, again, people, I know they want to get out and about, and I know they need to find ways to get where they need to go. And we're going to work as diligently as we can to restore, the road network to get people around the city. But we're in a serious situation, and we need everybody to do their part and stay home and stay off the roads if they can, as much as they can.
So, how many remaining connections do rescue workers have into that section of town?
That I'm not sure. I'd have to defer to them. They're out on the ground. I've been here trying to monitor things as best I can from this room, but I know that situation is still unfolding.
And they're really assessing, not just for, yes, we want to get in and save people, but they have to be able to get in safely with those heavy equipment, right?
Absolutely. And, we're doing a lot of rescues by boat because that's the only way in and out. And so we've been lucky to have a lot of support from different agencies, different municipalities that have come down, state, county level, federal level, that are bringing resources, bringing boats, bringing personnel, bringing teams of people to help relieve our first responders who are out there, who have been working around the clock. They need a break too, and they can only do so much. So thankfully, the country really has rallied around us and brought support, and we really appreciate that because there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of rescues still ongoing, and we're trying to catch up with all the calls for service and help that are out there.
So I went in by boat a couple days back because that Lady Slipper area right off of Sumter is one of our lowest lying areas in Northport still, and it traditionally has been I would say a light flood to moderate flood. Now that they're building houses up higher, it has been not as noticeable as it was in the past because of the great effort of Public Works in cleaning up our canals and making sure that we had great water flow and also the control of the levels. I talked to Mayor Pete the other night, and he had mentioned that Public Works had actually worked really hard at lowering our levels to the optimal level that they could without killing off fish. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there's a double-edged sword with that, because if you lower those down and you kill fish, the federal government then comes in and fines you, right? And that's one of the things he talked about. But they lowered the levels down. If we wouldn't have lowered and we wouldn't have kind of controlled that level of water that we already had, this could have been more catastrophic than it is today.
You're right. It's hard to imagine, but the Public Works team has done everything they could to lower those levels. Even for 2 weeks leading up to this storm, we were talking about that. We knew that this storm was going to be a big one. And, we got hit a little worse than we anticipated. But, you know how it works historically with water and the rainfall from the north that flows down through Northport. And those water control structures are a big part of helping the recovery process because they allow that water to keep flowing. And so the good news is that every indication is that they are working the way they're intended to work. We're watching the water levels very closely. Our team was up in the air by helicopter to look at some of the structures to assess what damage they sustained and how they're functioning. And the good news is that they are functioning the way they're intended to. So we're hopeful and we're optimistic that that's going to continue, and that we're seeing the rain levels from the north. The gauges that we look at are starting to trend downward. And so it's still going to be a few days because it takes time for that water to get down to us and then flow through Northport. But we're confident that hopefully that's going to work the way it's intended to, and that these floodwaters that have been rising are eventually going to stabilize and start to come down.
I know that there's no mandatory evacuations in place for Northport, but there is a real high suggestion for people who are near the canals. I would even say along the Cocoa Plum, because it is stretched, I believe, as far as I've ever seen it in water capacity. What would be your suggestion for people right now, maybe for the next 24 to 72 hours, that live along those water canals and have that concern about flooding and being forced out?
Well, I think you said it best, John. We really recommend that if you're living near an area that's impacted by water, if you're living on the water, if you are seeing levels rise, it's something you need to really think about. And, if you're in doubt, what's the harm, really, rather than keeping yourself in a dangerous situation? If you can get out, you don't want to find yourself stuck. And when you do that, not only are you at risk, your family's at risk, but the first responders that have to come get you are now at risk because you wanted to stay when there's a chance that maybe you could have gotten out. So we want everybody to use their best judgment, do what's best for them and their families. But if you can get out and you can get to a friend or a family member and you don't have to go to a shelter, that's going to be really your last resort. We say that before a storm, but it goes for the same now. It's not a place that you want to be. Everybody would rather be in their home and be comfortable. But if you can get out and get to a friend or a family member or somewhere else to stay, somewhere out of town, somewhere nearby even, you don't have to go far. But if you can get away from a dangerous situation and you can do that safely, and you can do that now before the water is knocking on your front door, it would be probably wise to do that.
Are we expecting more? I know we're not. For the next 15 days, we're really expecting some really moderate temperatures, higher temperatures during the day, but nice temperatures at night. People that are without AC are going to appreciate those cooler temperatures because that cold front that's moving in is really helping us. And it's going to also help the people out there that have had water intrusion and maybe keep that mold down while they can assess and maybe tarp and get things dried out. FPL is doing an amazing job with statewide and other groups that have come down from the United States to really handle our downed wires and get things up and running. I did read something about in certain areas they were thinking that they were going to have it all done today. But our county and other counties around us, they are truly committed to getting things set up, but they're not promising electric today to all residents, correct?
I think you're right. I think they're working as hard as they can to get the help that we need. But they're impacted just as much as everybody else when the roads are flooded, when there's traffic. They can't get to us. They have to wait for the impacts of that storm. And as you know, it was a long one with sustained winds for a long time that wasn't safe for anybody to be out there, including those crews. So now that that's subsided, it's great. And it's unfortunate that we have such beautiful weather and a lot of us can't really truly enjoy it because we're dealing with the impacts of a historic hurricane. But you're right. It does help a little bit for the folks that are without power. We ask them, and I know FPL does as well, that they're just going to have to be patient because there are a lot of outages, not just here, not just in Northport, not just in Sarasota County, but they're working hard to get them done. And we're working closely with them to identify the areas that are particularly hard hit, making sure that they're getting what they need to get done here in Northport to help our citizens.
And I Staycation Local, it's a great question, but I have to wonder, at some point with the reassessment and the road damages that we've incurred, and the federal dollars that will probably be here to assist that now. Things are going to change within the infrastructure of Northport at some time, but it's not a priority for you right now, correct?
Well, it's something that everybody's thinking about and looking at, right? So, we've had conversations already of what is it going to look like to rebuild Price Boulevard? What is it going to take? Our community changed when Ian hit us, and things are going to change, and that's just one part of it. There's going to be a long recovery phase, and it's not days and it's not weeks. It's going to be months and months from now, with all the impacts that we're seeing that are going to have to be addressed, and that's one of them. But first and foremost, we have to take care of people that are in danger, take care of people that are in need, take care of people that need food, shelter, medical attention. We take care of that first, but at the same time, we're also juggling that recovery phase. And we have professionals who are trained, and our teams are ready. They're ready to get out to assess the damage of the community, really take stock of just how bad we've been hit and where we need to go from here.
Mayor Pete was on last night, and we were trying to get vital information out, and there's all kinds of things happening right now, and people are, and you mentioned them a couple of times, but people are really concerned about their moment, not the vast moment that we're dealing with out there, because you mentioned that we had things set up. Tell the listening audience, what changes did you guys have to make with the game plan that you had set forth, even getting rescue equipment in here when 75 went down?
Sure. First and foremost, what we think about is our emergency response. That's a route that we use to get to other hospitals. And so had to find a workaround there to get those emergency response vehicles to where they needed to go. And then second, we have the deliveries of supplies, of fuel that's needed desperately, that everybody's dealing with, but the responders need for our vehicles. And so it impacts everything. And so we're working around that as best we can. We hope that it's going to be reopened soon. But it's just another challenge that we've had to deal with. We prepare as best we can. That's what we do as a government, to help our citizens to be ready for situations like this. But you can never truly be ready, because there's always going to be things that come up that throw a wrench into them. So we adapt and we do the best we can. We have a really hardworking team of people here. So many city employees that I work with. I'm very proud to say that I'm part of the team, who are working in different roles, different from their everyday job, because City Hall's closed. We're hoping to get back to our regular, business day and our business as normal as soon as we can, and restore the services that the community needs. But right now we're in this emergency activation, and we're working diligently to get things, as back to normal as we can, and get things going again.
And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I took some video of the trash trucks moving around at the compound. I want to talk a little bit about the compound and its situation, because while homes here have gotten hit, we've had some issues at the compound. And one of the biggest things I think is targeted in this time of need, whether people believe that, yes, it's survival, but it's also the picking up of debris and the picking up of trash, to get things, keep things healthy within the community. Can you talk about those types of services and what's projected? I know you can't give a schedule yet, because those trucks are really blocked right now to 2 access points out where they normally had more. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We understand that everybody has need out there, and, we all want to get back to normal. We all want to get our trash and recycling picked up. Our public works crews, solid waste, are working very hard to make the critical pickups. So what are the areas of the biggest need? How do we get to them? We don't want health and safety impacts from trash, from debris. The city has debris contractors under contract. So if you remember, a lot of communities experienced this during Hurricane Irma, with so much debris that was left around the state. And that cleanup process took in some communities weeks and weeks and months because there was just so much. So thankfully we have contractors on standby so that when it's safe for that operation to go on, when the roads are clear enough that they can get in and start to do that work, they can get the debris cleared. We all want to get back to normal. We want to restore service as much as everybody else out there does. But we ask for everybody's patience as we work through this process.
Northport TV wants to know, what are some of the immediate needs of first responders and the city that could aid in the efforts?
We are working very closely with the state and the county to coordinate this response. So any needs that come out of the city, we elevate them up to the county level and to the state level, and we have a process for that. And there's been an outpouring of support and, so many agencies, so many other communities that have dedicated resources to us. The state has been great. The county have been great to get us the things that we need, whether that's vehicles to help with the recovery, with generators, with fuel, all those things. We have a chain that we work through here out of the EOC and a process that's in place so that we can get those things that we need.
And Allison, you have a question, Allison Johns, but you didn't post the question. So if you post the question real quick, I'll get back to Jason with that. But Marie Golden, she wanted to know, when do you expect the flood water to stop rising and begin to recede?
I think we all want to know that. And, it's a little hard to say because it depends on the area. Like we said, we typically see levels rise for, up to 3 days after we have a regular storm event. But it can be a week sometimes where it takes for those waters to truly get back down to normal levels. So this is going to be a long process, and we need everybody to be patient and understand. We were hit by a storm that we have never seen, a lot of us in our lives. And so many of us here in Northport are new residents to Florida. As you know, how much the community has grown. So imagine so many people here have never experienced any hurricane, and this is one unlike any that any Floridian has seen before. So, it's going to take some time and until we can get back to where we were before this storm hit us.
And so I'm going to add a couple things in there because I've had 4 years now of talking with Public Works about how they handle our canals and their concerns about the northern shedding of water into our canals. So our canals are extremely well maintained. Our canals are really paid attention to at an extremely high level. And in talking with Public Works over all this time, one of the biggest concerns upstream was the debris and everything that blocked water. Okay, we just had another major storm. These are not normal blockages. So the truth of the matter is, if I had Public Works on here and talking about this, some of their concern would be some of the blockages that are there with the water shedding from the northern area could be delayed too because of some of the blockages that are in the way. So while we're getting some water shedding and we're seeing some relief at some points in time, we've had good movement with tide now. We've had better wind offshore, which has helped us quite a bit. The big thing is we have to have some concern about what's being released further north of us because of what we're dealing with now within our own infrastructure. The roads that people are driving on that are ignoring the road closed signs. I'm going to slide back down to Hillsborough for a second because Northport owns half of that. Charlotte County owns the other half of that. It butts up against the Cocoa Plum, which is about 30 feet deep and miles long, and right now at maximum capacity. If people continue to drive on that road behind Kia and they force the Cocoa Plum waterway water down that 4-foot canal that runs alongside and under US 41, Are we assessing that as a possible disaster if that happens?
I can tell you, John, we're assessing everything, and I leave that to the experts in public works because they know it. Although you seem pretty knowledgeable yourself, they know this stuff and they know what they're doing. They're working very hard. What we really need for people to know and to understand is if you see a road closure sign, it's there for a reason, and please observe it. Not only for your safety, but for the benefit of the entire community, because it can hamper the recovery, just as you said. So, again, we can't stress it enough. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Help us by listening to the advice, the recommendations, whether it's about shelters and evacuations, or whether it's about roads and being out on the road. That's there for a good reason. People who know what they're talking about are advising you, and it would really help everybody in the community to listen to them.
Well, and I think as a community, we're all looking at our canals like, look at the pressure, look at the amount of water. But when you put that up against unheard of levels, these roads were designed a certain way. They were not designed for what we're getting today. This is a 500-year storm that no one has. I don't know of anybody who's endured 24 inches of rain in 5 hours, and let alone the fact that we're going to get fed all the water that got dumped from that storm from the north of us. So we had 24 inches of rain, and now we're going to add on top of that. And with all of that pressure coming down into our canals and our communities, I know for a fact the way you guys are handling it has been top notch. I know that FEMA has had their boat rescue. I talked to a guy who really took me back to save one of my friends back in Lady Slipper area 2 days ago, right after the storm. There were 7 people. There were pets. People tried to do what they were supposed to do in this situation. Flood zones. I want you to real quick talk about the difference and what people need to understand about a flood zone and a surge zone. Because the surge zone, and I know we talked about it briefly the other day, but that surge zone is something at a level that we've never really seen before. And can you talk about that just for a second?
Sure. I think Mike Ryan, our emergency manager, is much more well versed in it than I am. But I think to your earlier point about seeing things that we haven't seen before, we've been impacted in a way that we haven't seen before. And so those levels are beyond what we anticipated. And so when we had evacuation, recommendations that were issued for your zone A and B, we really hope that people listen. And we have a smart community. They're very intelligent, and for a large majority of them have really complied with what we asked of them. And we know we're finding people in difficult situations where they're needing help now that weren't able to get out. But I think the level that we're seeing was something that nobody could really anticipate with this storm and the magnitude that it's been.
Can you talk about some of the first aid and food and water stations that are being set up in Northport, and kind of really educate people that they're not forgotten, that there's a process in place for all this? Go ahead.
Absolutely. We're currently working on a point of distribution. You know what, John? I'm going to have to call you back, and we'll get you some more information very soon. All right. We'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. I will get him back on the air later today. I promise you, I don't know what's happening there. But obviously something in the background there has stirred something to go on. So there's meetings happening all the time. There's critical information being distributed. Please join me later. I cannot give you a time. I promise I will. Please share this video. Okay. Please share this information out to whoever you can share it to. As far as the food and the water, I know that if you go to San Pedro was one location that provided that. That there's food there. Publix on Price Boulevard, or not Price. I don't know if Price is open yet over there, but the Publix on Tamiami Trail, the Publix on Toledo Blade have both been open. There have been gas stations open. Please take cash if you can take cash to them. Some take credit cards still, but take a $20 bill. Most gas stations are rationing $20 at a time. That, and just so you know, don't get greedy because you're not gonna. There's people that are walking up there with 30 gas cans. You're gonna get $20 or whatever they allow you to get. Please, please, please understand there's more help on their way. There's more help. They're dealing with all kinds of emergency issues out there. The roads, just our roads in our own city are compromised. Okay, they're compromised. I think about the pressure when you're driving around looky-looing. You know, I volunteer at the radio station. I do my show each and every week, twice a week. Rich Suggs does. We have press passes. The reason we have press passes is we're trying to get the information back to you. We're part of the first responder unit, whether there's a national crisis or not. Please keep that in mind. When I'm telling you I'm out there, I'm not out there telling you you should be out there. I'm out there trying to get you the information, trying to get the public the information that gets us more assistance. Okay? I know that I did the show last night and we talked about this stuff, but understand, if the road says it's closed, I'm not driving on it, and I would encourage you not to do the same thing. And as a responsible citizen, I would absolutely make sure that you had a situation covered if somebody was driving over a road closure. There could be life or death on the other side of that road, and if there's no chance of getting help, a life could be lost. Only because you want to be a looky-loo and you want to get out and go. Prime example, I worked my way back to my sister-in-law. We walked 2 gas cylinders across the bridge. While we were there, 15, 20 cars going over the bridge. Here's the example you have right now. Compromised way out has already occurred behind Walmart. It has already occurred. There's no road and there's no stoppage or slow down of water. Okay? So that's a free-flowing canal right now. Free-flowing. If we continue to open our canals to be free-flowing, can you imagine what's going to occur? The Coco Plum is already as high as I've ever seen it. It's just too risky. If you go in the water, no one may be there to get you. It's just that way. And you may not be saved. So if you're going to do anything like that, stop thinking about yourself. Maybe think about how many people you're putting in jeopardy because you're more important than the rest of them. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not more important. I took some criticism the other day, and I promise you I'm not going to take it anymore. There's no reason to be critical because I got this. Okay? There's no reason. Everybody needs to settle down, stay calm, cool, and collected, and understand that we're all doing a job, whether we're volunteered or not. City Hall is doing everything possible to get this information out to you. They're dealing with multiple emergencies. We've got backups on 75 north and south. We got traffic trying to get where? Not even here. The citizens of our town need to understand something. While we're mission critical, I don't even know what the word is in Fort Myers, Punta Gorda, Cape Coral, Naples. It goes all the way down as far as Key West, where damage has been done from this storm. I think we have a responsibility to step up to the plate and stay out of the way. I've not gone into harm's way one time today or yesterday. I've not blocked traffic. I've gotten out of the way. I've stayed far away because most of the shots I've gotten are with a drone. So anybody who wants to be critical, my number is 941-391-4663. Call me. We'll go drink a beer together. I'll tell you exactly what being critical can do. Okay? Because misinformation has been flowing out there excessively. Stop. Get your facts straight before you post crap on the internet. When you drive by somebody and you yell out the window, there's 6 feet of water coming at me. False information. False. When you make people turn around because there's 6 feet of water, true story. True story. It's BS. Grow up, be an adult, okay? Settle your butt down and do the right thing. And by the way, maybe you shouldn't have been on the road to begin with because you weren't doing anything but looking. Looky-loos, stay home. Looky-loos, stay home. Quick response to, do you believe that FPL wouldn't even start restoring power to the flooded areas and surrounding Sumter until the roads were clear of water? I don't think so. I met up with some guys that were out working for FPL, and their job was to survey and track the poles. We live in a state that deals with this all the time. Northport Parks and Rec has a playbook. Tells you all about our parks. They do a great job. I'll guarantee we have a playbook for hurricane events, and they work really hard at City Hall to keep that updated. I'll guarantee there's another chapter in their book that they're writing for this one. Guarantee. There's no one that's going to be able to write the book better than people down south. There's another chapter. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. If you got a house and it's wet, it's okay. It'll dry out. It'll get repaired. There aren't other houses to go to. They weren't there before this event. As a realtor, I know that firsthand. Take a deep breath. We will get through this. I was driving up 41 and looked over and saw Holiday Park entryway. Want real terms? The entryway looked great. No problem. All the buildings didn't look too bad. Everything was good. It's not there. It's destroyed. A picture of entry is not what you see when you get in. If you think you have a bad day, think of the person that has no house. Think of the person who wishes that they were in their yard. I'm just putting some perspective out there. I've seen great people doing great things in our community. Big time. Big time. I've also seen people who they're rocking my world. okay? Because they're selfish. They need to slow down. We're on day 3. Someone once told me that the first 3 days, everything is kind of crazy. But when it gets crazier is day 4, 5, and 6. You know, who would have thought I would have been without power for 12 hours? I was blessed. I've been on the air trying to get this information out every day. Rich Suggs is not here. He's been on the air. Our antenna got struck by lightning. All these things stop us from getting on the air and producing a show and getting information out. I promise you, I've never had to have conversations with people like I've had during this time. And I'm comparing that to Charlie. People who went through Charlie, people who survived Charlie, the Chuck Deans of the world, his family. I'll guarantee there are others that are thinking the same thing. Holy crap, this wasn't a normal storm. If it wasn't a normal storm, why do you want abnormal requests? I talked to a guy the other day, and all he wanted was the city of Northport to have water at the end of his driveway so he could drink water. Because the city of Northport was supposed to handle that situation like his northern state handled salt for the road for winter. Why don't we have a warehouse full of water so that we can give water out if we have an emergency? Brilliant. I love it. Brilliant. Great move. Seriously. You should have been prepared yourself. You're holding the city of Northport accountable for a hurricane preparation that you only get told that the minute you get into this state. And you want to up the standards to salt? I'm from Ohio. We collect salt too for winter. Last time I checked, the northern states didn't drop a bag of salt off on my driveway so I could salt my driveway. We bought it ourselves, or we shoveled it ourselves. Did that since I was a kid. Please start thinking about this strategically. Please start paying attention and tell people around you to slow down, to think things out, to be strategic on what you're going to do and how you're going to get there. And make sure it's a dire need, not I got to go looky-loo. Everybody wants to get a photo of disaster. I don't want to take any more photos of disaster. I really don't. It's not pleasurable. I don't need hits on Facebook, YouTube, or any of these things. It sucks to go out and watch lives destroyed. So if you're out there and you think you're cool taking the shots, get off the damn road. Okay? Let people get in there, assess these things, and get our lives back together so we can rebuild this community like we damn well know we're going to. Food is on its way. I promise you, food is on its way. Water is on its way at larger numbers than we know what to deal with. How are they going to get through if you looky-loos are clogging up 41 because there's no access on 75? Thinking about that? Can you share it for me? Can you let people know that if they're out there just gallivanting around, They could be blocking food and supplies for not only our community, but people further south than us that got hit harder than we did. If you haven't seen pictures and you don't have the capability of seeing pictures, when you do, and you look back at your house that has 3 shingles off and a broken window, I think your perspective will change. At least I hope so, because I think we have great people in our community. We're blessed to have a lot of help, a lot of infrastructure that has done its job. But if we continue to not obey the signs on our streets, the damage and the work that we're going to incur post this event could make your life much more difficult than the last 3 days. And it could take longer. Our canals, our 80 miles of canals, have been maintained extremely well by Public Works for a long time. They have been replacing the levees throughout. The amount of water that's coming down right now, I'm overly impressed with the fact that General Development built them 60 years ago, 60 plus years ago, and they're actually holding. Technology's changed. Our canals haven't changed much. We've had these canals since the start. No other city deals with these canals. For you naysayers out there that say we don't need equipment for our canals, maybe this is a wake-up call that other communities upstream need to work that too. Help your neighbor. If you're going to get on the road, make sure you're going for more than you. Make a list and work it out. My door is open. Got people coming in, taking a shower, and going home. Blessed. The door's open. Open your door, open your hearts, open your minds, settle down. This is day 3. If you did the right thing and you supplied your own food, your own water, because you knew this was coming, don't rush to the store and buy more. Because you're clearing the shelves for people who have nothing because they don't have a house. They're being told to go to a shelter when you were told to go to a shelter or shelter in place. You were told, gather supplies. Take these things with you. If we start hoarding supplies now, and you will, some of you won't, but if we start hoarding supplies now, supply chains in this country have been harmed for a long time. You think it's going to get better? Settle down. Take what you need. Only take what you need. And leave people to have supplies that they are in desperate need for. You may want, but you don't need. I'm going to be back. I appreciate all of my listening audience. I want you to share this information. I'm going to promise you this. The visuals I got on 75, I've never seen 75 north and southbound closed unless there was a major wreck. Well, we've got a major wreck on our hands, and it's 75. And that's our lifeline. That's the lifeline to our neighboring communities. They're working diligently on how to get supplies south of us too. DeSoto County, in case you haven't heard, worse than we are. So there are no roads to go middle of the state. There's no evacuation route, or there's no way of bringing trucks through that direction. You're limited on gas. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Before I get off the air, I know that I have listening audiences out there right now on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. I hope that we're doing the right thing by you. I don't mean to be abrasive. I do mean to be honest and trustworthy. It is not pretty out there. And I'm talking about our community. I've been outside of our community because this is where I live. Been here for 23 years. I have no desire to think about going anywhere else. But I love our surrounding communities. And if we all don't take a deep breath, they're going to suffer too, more than they already have. Do you have any last questions? Do you have anything you want to get off your chest that you please comment? Please ask questions. If I can't, and I do have a lot of answers, believe it or not. I've been doing this now for 72 hours, and I've interviewed a lot of people, talked to a lot of people. But if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to make one up. If you post your questions, my promise to you is I'll find the person who can give the answer. And let's start counting on the truth and stop the BS of false information. Our community can't take false accusations. Sumter Bridge going over Coco Plum did not collapse. Our canals are stretched beyond belief. We have erosions out there. Let me see. Here we go. Do you have an answer on if it will flood more on Salford? All right. So Cindy, my sister-in-law is over there right now. Like I said, we've been taking things over. The breach that happened on the Salford area is right behind the Walmart, that first bridge. I can't promise you there's not going to be more. My question would be, if it's moving higher around your home and going into the street, and it's the true statement with a flood of any sort, okay? Because even as a kid, I was in a flood. The one thing you do is you run from water. You get to the higher ground, okay? Right now, we're not seeing a wall of water. What we're seeing is movement of water through our canals, whether it be at a freer pace. It was controlled prior to. It's not controlled when there's breaches. There is no slowdown of water. When you have that force of water coming at you, that's when it rises quicker. My suggestion, if it's rising too quick and you see it rising and you feel uncomfortable, don't wait until you feel terrified. Go to the shelter. Honest to God, take your book, take some snacks, take a pillow, take a chair, take your blanket, go to the shelter. What's 24 hours in a shelter to reassess what's happening? That's all. You live that 24 hours at a time. We did it through Irma. Okay? We did it through Irma. But if you feel unsafe, and I'll go one step further, If you've been through a flood before and you think this is just your normal flood, I'll just tell you you're wrong. You're wrong. If you see the amount of water in DeSoto County and north, where's it going to go? The truth is, we have no clue how it's going to affect and what's going to happen. The only thing, Cindy, that we can count on is that if you see a situation that makes you uncomfortable, leave it. You can always go back. You can always go back. I see that you have something else. How are they supposed to get out? There's too much flooding. Well, great. You can, if you've got a medical emergency, you can call 911. You can call 941-429-7000 to get on the list to get airboated out. Relax. There's a way. Listen, I saw FEMA in action. I was on a boat before FEMA got there getting people out. There are people coming from other counties throwing their boat in the water to get us out. Firsthand. Did it. Went into an area that I didn't know what I was going to run into because I had a friend that I know was flooding. The most terrifying thing that I will promise you is when you walk into an empty house, knowing that it's flooding and you can't find the person because it's dark and you have no clue where they're at. Thank God I got a loud mouth. My Buckeye fans out there, they know I can yell, okay? It's the one time that I can promise you the yelling I did was also the fear of what I would find. These are not good times, but they can be great times as long as you're there to rebuild things and put it right. If you're trapped, second part of your question, if you're trapped and you have no food or water, very simple. 941-429-7000, but you have to tell them you want out. You have to tell them you want out. Carol Speckman, great comment. We learned this last night. Unless you are on a 911 call to be rescued, they will not come and get you after dark. So if you like rising water and you have rising water during the daylight and you need food and water, they're not going to bring that to you. So what are you going to do? Leave or stay? Silly question, but it's been answered several ways and people have stayed. Less than 24 hours later, they're calling or scheduling to get out. Cindy, I love your question. These are great questions. There's something to be said about being prepared and the ability to let it go. At some point, if you're in a house and you have no electric and you have no food and you have no water and it's flooded, I think you've done all you can do because you survived all those things and you're still able to get out. But if you refuse to get out, why should we come back and help you when there's other people who want out, who need out? Every time someone takes an opportunity to go in to rescue you and or a loved one, and they refuse to leave because they want more water so they can wade in their house? Think about it. Cindy, great questions. And really people need to think about the resources that are being wasted on people who want to stay home. Common sense. It might be a huge amount of common sense. Huge. Saw it firsthand. Rode down the street in a boat. One of the most chilling, still sucked. Just sucked. And there were people that stayed and said, I'm going to wait it out. Stupid. Don't wait it out. Water is nothing to play around with. First responders are nothing to play with. They're there to save you, to save others. If you don't want to leave, yell it out your front door before the boat gets there. You know, I looked at a picture today and I realized that the picture of our waterfront properties didn't have streets. Perspective. If your house is not a canal house and you have one now, and the water's not receding and it's still going up, suggestion is to leave. Highly suggested. Cindy, thank you so much for your question. I hope I answered that the way you wanted me to. Let's see. Ron Gray, hats off to the first responders. Kudos, Ron. Kudos. They're amazing. They're doing a great job. Let's see. Ashley says, unbelievable. You're awesome, John. No, I'm not. I love the community. Ashley, I appreciate it. Truthfully, we all are doing our jobs. Everybody's doing their job. Everybody is focused on what they need to do. Ron, do you have another? I know this is unknown. Any idea when electric might be restored? Days, weeks, or longer? Okay, projection. Okay, small projection. Most right now are getting turned back on in phases. Okay, as they complete things. So I know I got the Bridgetown area, Oasis, Atlanta Braves area. Okay, the Welland Park, Northport Welland Park, Northport Grand Paradiso, all those areas up there, they're getting restored. Now I don't want to aggravate anybody because that is Northport, but understand that infrastructure is totally different than some of the infrastructure that we're dealing with in other areas of Northport that have telephone poles and different things. That's all underground. So that was a lot more protected. So it was easier to get it turned on. Exactly where I live too. We're mostly underground. Okay. The infrastructure is set up totally different. So a lot of the things that they had to do to get things connected back up, just the new infrastructures that they're doing versus the old style. We were going to a lot of underground, the Salford area, that area right there. It was going to underground as the hurricane was going. So I can't promise you anything, but everything that's been out there on FPL and everything that I can read is that 95% of the southern areas are being restored. Keep in mind, they don't have a lot of houses. There's infrastructure there that needs repaired. So when houses are gone, they're not talking about those people, okay, that had to relocate. But they're getting this restored as fastly and as quick as possible. And I got to tell you, at day 2, we had people surveying it, okay? Got pictures of it. They were here. They were on the ground, boots on the ground, doing everything they can. And I said this the other day on the show, the fact that we have Publix open and operating less than 2 days after a hurricane, less than 2 days, I find to be absolutely amazing. Amazing. They're going to restock those shelves. Everyone slow down, because guess what? We got 2 open. There'll be more. Okay. There's free food being handed out. There's food and water that's being handed out at San Pedro, Blue Ridge Park. So all those areas that the first aid and is getting into, those things are all time. There's free food for Port Charlotte people and the Inglewood people. And I will try to post this on this feed so people can get out there and get to it. But if you're trapped, if you don't have a way out, phone a friend, text a loved one. Don't drive out and then drive back in. That's what they're doing. Because you have one road out and one road in. And I don't know what the emergency was that they just had. But no emergency right now is a good one. If we don't encourage people to be family friends today and help your neighbor, we got no help of being a great community. I've told stories about my past, how I remember my neighbors when I was a kid. Think about the people on your street. Ask yourself if you know their first name. And if you don't, go find out. And then make a list and get it out to somebody and get some rescue food into everyone. Don't be selfish enough to say, I got some. Door open policy. Door open policy. I think we all need to learn how to be better residents. Not that we're not already great. But last time I checked, there isn't any of us that can't be better. All right. So I let's see. Carol, by the way, Carol's my mom. All first responders are really everyday heroes, and that's a fact. So that you guys know, and you can share this, 27 years medical before I became a real estate agent here in Northport and surrounding communities with RE/MAX. If you don't know what a first responder is going through right now, go bag a body. I've done that in an appropriate environment, a hospital. I don't think we think about these things nearly enough. There's going to be trauma from what people have seen. This is not everyday stuff. I'd be terrified if this was everyday stuff. Let's all rally. Realize what we have. Understand what we lost. And support everyone who is trying to help this community right now. I said it the other day, get rid of the R and the D and get your opinion out of the way. If you don't think that everyone is paying attention, you would be 100% wrong. If you're sitting there thinking, poor little me, stop. I'm 100% fine. Home is 100% fine. Blessed. I haven't stopped thinking about you all. And I'm just a radio show host that happens to be a realtor who loves my community. Rich Suggs feels the same way. Please, everybody take care. Everybody relax. And I promise you, as soon as I get more truthful, vital information, I will be back on Facebook for you to share and get out to the public. One last thing. The national news sucks when it comes to talking about Northport. And I've said this over and over again. It's okay. It's okay. We did not get hit nearly as hard as our communities down south. Got word for you though, national news. We're a great community. We're going to be rebuilt. And Northport will be better. And we'll be back. This is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio 97.5 FM saying thanks for listening in. Please share this information and give some hugs out today to anybody in your area that needs one. Have a good night.